All right, welcome back. Another Sunday is upon us. Week one is in the books. We brought you the great content. We brought you the fire last week, and we're back for week two. And we're back for week three and all the other weeks past that. Made you a lot of money. Hope you tuned in and hope you locked in those bets because me, Spin Doctor, and DMAC were on point. We gave you the answers to the test. And you know what? We're going to just do it again and again and again and again and again. So without further ado, welcome in my two co-hosts, Spin Doc Sports, DMAC Wakefield, the two chosen people for Sunday morning quarterbacks. What's good, my guys? How we feeling?
Feeling good, man. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's going good. My team's 1-0, and I mean, I have no complaints about last week.
Me and Spin got 1-0 teams. Look at us. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Meanwhile, Patrick Mahomes led the league in interceptions for about
2 days, 48 hours.
But here we are.
Yes,
week one in the books. I got to get something out of the way. And it's going to be tough for people to stomach and take because I've been just so honest about this kid. Listen, I love Justin Fields, and I have to talk about this immediately because it's been wearing on my mind for a whole fucking week. Like, I don't think I've seen many worse quarterbacking games in my life than what I saw from him on Sunday. Wide receivers open, tight ends open. He just had his head up his ass. And I know DMAC loves Quay Walker. I know he loves him. I mean, he had a pick six. But he kind of threw it right to him. I'm glad you pointed that out too, because I was looking at the return, because he got hit and then he got hit again at the goal line. So all right,
it's a nice return. Yeah.
Change direction. You really look like a pure athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, damn, but Justin Fields gifted him that. Listen, I'm not ready to give up on the kid. Fucking terrible. Spin takeaways from week one, and then we'll go to DMAC. You guys can alternate, however y'all want to go, but. Want to hear your thoughts on week one, and and then we'll start getting into week two.
Yeah. So the biggest trend that I always tell people, and this is for those that know how big I am into fantasy. The best way I can sum up week one is that the Aaron Rodgers, the RELAX, because overperforming teams are often never as good as they showed. Underperforming teams are often never as bad as they showed. You also got to remember that defensive coordinators and scheme wise, or even offensive coordinators for their week one opponent, they've had a month to a month and a half to just prep, watch film. So you do get you can get a few little bit skewed results from what the mean is. At week two, week three, and beyond, teams typically regress to the mean, or elevate to the mean. I'm talking specifically about teams like the Giants, the Bengals, who were just absolute dog shit. They're not as bad as they showed, but so week 2 and 3 and 4 kind of are weeks where you can really see, was this an aberration
or is this shit's prettier.
That's true.
Than how the Giants played.
They were horrendous.
That shit right there was something. That was fucking awful.
So if you own any of those guys in fantasy, barring an injury, my advice would be just relax, see what they do this week. It's a long season. There's always time to make moves. My second takeaway is for my Bucks. Obviously, big win for us. Not a game that I personally expected us to win, but I'll take it. And what I saw with them was the Bucks have a new identity. Last year, with all the offensive, TB12 and his friends, they still tried to be more of an offensive football team like they were under Arians. And that just doesn't really match Todd Bowles. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and anoint Todd Bowles as like a coach of the year candidate yet, but the identity that we have on this team matches Bowles a lot more. It's a physical defense. It's a speed cover, sideline to sideline defense, aggressive as he always is. But then on offense, there's not, it's a little more compact. And what I liked about what Baker did last week was that he took care of the football. It's always been an Achilles heel, no turnovers, and really just had took the easy throw. One thing that I saw throughout his time in Cleveland, when I went back and watched tape when we signed him, was when the game got like dicey, he would try to force things, try to make throws that weren't there, try to make throws he wasn't capable of. Maybe somebody like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Trevor Lawrence could make those throws, but Baker Mayfield cannot. So he played within himself, and that's what I like. And I attribute that to our offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, who is a former quarterbacks coach for the Seahawks, and he's the one who actually got Geno to have the season that he had last year. So those are my main takeaways. There are other individual ones for games, but we don't have time for that. Just know that if your team sucked, they're not as bad as they showed. If your team was perfect, they're not that good. Watch weeks 2 and 3 to see what happens there. That's the true measure, because they have a lot less time to prepare.
And real quick, that applies to everybody except the Cardinals.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Fair enough.
The Cardinals don't count.
Except for they actually, you know what? They actually didn't play horrible.
No, they did not. They did not at all.
They fought the whole game. So,
but that's going to be the story all year. It's going to be the Buzz Lightyear. They can't fly. They're falling with style. Like, they're not flying. They're just falling.
Right.
That's what's going on.
So those are mine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some good takeaways. And look, my main one, just watching the space of the games, McVay and McDaniel, those two offensive minds, you could tell that they had a month, as Chris said, the space of time in which they were able to plan for each of these defenses, and you saw everything put on tape there. I mean, McDaniel and the speed out to get the leverage of the defense to change with Tyreek Hill's speed on top of it. I mean, just diabolical stuff from him that he was drawing up. McVay, with limited weapons, no Cooper Kupp, still putting Matthew Stafford in great positions to succeed against that Seattle defense. So those two great minds were certainly something that really stood out to me as well. Secondarily, this kind of plays into your point, obviously. The Justin Fields situation, of course, he did not have a good game. He left a lot out there to be desired, but also I thought it was the dichotomy of two different circumstances. Jordan Love, in a great circumstance in which he's surrounded with a good offensive play caller, good offensive line, good surrounding weapons, was able just to sit back there after, having sitting on the bench and learning from Aaron Rodgers, and you saw a little bit of that in this game. He just was able to distribute the football easily. And, sometimes obviously the field circumstances have not been nearly as good to deal with. So that was a little bit of a secondary point. And the third one is simply this: regression comes for us all. We're obviously airing this after the Thursday night football game that we just watched between the Vikings and the Eagles, in which they turned the ball over multiple times and gave the ball back to them. The Vikings are now 0-2 in one-score games after going 11-0 last season. These things tend to happen when you get lucky one season and they flip on you the next season. The Giants, they were awful on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. I think that was a lot to say about the Cowboys and how great they are. The Giants will be better starting this week against Arizona Cardinals, but regression will come for them as well. So those are my three main takeaways from week one, and we'll continue to move forward in this season. But we got some great games to cover for sure, man.
Absolutely. Like you said, man, we're just getting to it, man. It's a new season. First week, no time to overreact. I got two quick takeaways. 49ers are clearly going undefeated. No one's beating them. Good luck. Good luck. I don't want to say Kenny Pickett sucks. And, he's not going to see that pass rush again. Oh, wait, they play the fucking Browns this week. Oh, okay. All right. Actually, I don't want to say he sucks, but.
Did you see the note with the tape? Let me watch the tape. He called the exact same. Not no variation. This is Matt Canada.
Matt Canada, yep.
No variation, no nothing. The exact same pass play 8 times over a quarter and a half.
Against the best defense in football.
Against the best defense in football.
What a goofy fuck. Oh, my goodness.
Who's had a month and a half knowing that's on your schedule? I know.
Listen, at that point, I don't know what you take away. It's like, maybe he was seeing ghosts. That can happen. That can happen. You throw it to the other team a couple of times, clearly seeing something that no one else is. Yeah, the Niners are clearly going undefeated, and yeah, it's great. That I don't have 3, just 2. That's enough.
Mm-hmm.
We got through it. Right. It is week 2. A lot of good matchups this week. I wouldn't call them great. I like some of them. They're okay. If being honest, I don't think the games this week are that great. I don't like the slate that much. I do think it's a good betting slate. I do think there's a tons of value we can find.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think this is a great slate. Any thoughts on that? Or am I just being a hater?
I like some of the matchups. I would say the best slate, but it's early in the season, so we don't know exactly what everybody's team is going to be. So
Yeah, I think that DMAC makes a good point, is that there's some that look good on paper, but then there were some games last week that look good on paper as well, like Browns Bengals, that were just horrific. That were just, I mean, Cowboys Giants. I mean, the game itself was hideous, unless you're a Dallas fan.
Right,
You like
yeah.
that Saints Titans rock fight that we got?
Yeah, it was
like
pretty
that?
ugly too. Well,
Jesus
I would
Christ.
even say I would even say the Bucks Vikings wasn't very exciting.
Yeah, but we kind of expected that. I will say this because I'm so keen on liking and loving to be right. Flores is trying some shit with that defense. I commend him for what he's trying because he knows they're devout of talent.
Absolutely.
He's trying. He's out there trying.
If you're not going to have a good defensive talent-wise, Brian Flores is the defensive coordinator you want, because he is going to frustrate the other offense for at least a half of football, which we saw again against the Eagles.
Right.
But
that's what I gotta throw out there, because that was my takeaway. The defense played well against Tampa. They played relatively well for what they could. Obviously, you're dealing with a high-level quarterback who can distinguish if you're running man and then make you pay on every fucking play you change to man. He did that. That's what he did, and that's how they won the game. And obviously that pertains to week 2. I know it's a quick review because Thursday night or whatever. But
yeah.
I do want to get into our first matchup of the week. Seattle Seahawks traveling to Ford Field to take on the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions coming off a huge emotional win on opening night against the defending champions. Patrick Mahomes lost a home game to start the season. I know that was on everyone's bingo card. Jared Goff and Ben Johnson walk out of Arrowhead with a win after Patrick Mahomes pretty much almost beats him by his fucking self. But again, we've heard a lot of different narratives throughout. No Kelsey in that one, no Chris Jones. Obviously, those two are back. But in regards to this week, we got the Seahawks. Seahawks obviously losing to the Rams. Puka Nacua, everybody's favorite fantasy football player, pickup of the season. Spin told you to draft him. Hopefully, you were smart enough to already have him on your team, because he told you months ago that he was gonna rock, whether or not Kupp was playing. And then, the huge disappointment from the Seattle defense last week. Matthew Stafford, like you guys mentioned earlier, the design was on full display. McVay game planning and putting him in advantageous situations to be successful. But now Seattle has a different beast to go up against a Detroit defense that looked improved, but there's some takeaways from that. I'm kind of 50-50 on. They did get a lot of good breaks in that game, receivers not being able to hold on to the ball. And I think a lot of people correlate the winning with domination, and that was not the case by any stretch for Detroit. On the flip side, the Seahawks did get dominated to some extent in the second half by the Rams. That was pretty bad. In this one, I expect points. I think we're going to get points from both sides. I think that the Detroit Lions defense, while the statistics say they were improved, the Chiefs did them a lot of favors in week 1. And I think that Seattle is going to look here to come out and perform offensively, knowing that there's guys banged up on their defense and there's guys banged up on their offense. But they know, I think that they're going to have to put up points. I like Seattle to cover in this one and possibly win outright. I got it at 5.5. Obviously, the numbers changed. I go to Spin and I go to DMAC, whomever wants to go first in regards to your thoughts in this one, whether it's fantasy betting, etc. But yeah, that's where I stand on it. I like Seattle to cover. I think it's a field goal game at worst.
D-Mac, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, my bad.
You're good.
I feel the same way. Seattle last game, I should say, they lost both of their tackles in the second half. That was a close game up until that point. Now they're without Abraham Lucas gone to IR. Charles Carson is going to be out. They brought in Jason Peters trying to bring it back into this. The Lions defense, I think, allowed our offense to get obviously opportunities to move the ball. Our wide receivers just didn't convert when they need to. JSN, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett will convert when they need to. I think that this is a game in which Seattle will be able to move the ball easily against the Lions defense. They will make this a close game at least, and I think that your pick of at least a field goal game to be able to stay under that 5.5 line right now is certainly within play. The thing I'll be watching from the other flip side, Lions, again, very good passing over the middle. We know Jared Goff is going to stand in there and deliver it. Seattle did not do a great job at necessarily owning the middle of the field against Matthew Stafford and the Rams last week. This isn't as good of a play caller as Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford as far as quarterback. How are they going to be able to adjust to me? Like you said, I think it's a close game. Seattle can stay within 3, maybe even 1 point and win outright. I think I favor the Lions a little bit, but I agree with your betting line as well.
For me, I look at this as this is an interesting matchup for Geno Smith. So he didn't have a great week 1. He'll be without 2 starting offensive tackles on Sunday. He gets a prime matchup indoors on the fast track. What I want to see, though, is, I talked about it in my opening about the impact that Dave Canales had on him and the relationship and the bond that the two of them had with QB and QB coach. They're also they're also pretty close in age. Canales is a very young coordinator. Who they hired to replace him was Greg Olson. And Greg Olson, not the broadcaster Greg Olson, but the former offensive coordinator for the Bucs, actually, and a whole host of other teams. The big difference here is that Canales is only like 7 or 8 years older than Geno, and Olson is in his 60s and is kind of has that like crusty old coach, kind of like a Belichick mindset. And Geno Smith has actually
he yells at clouds. He yells at clouds, is what you're saying.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Okay. And Geno has said how much he liked working with Canales because he's a player's coach. So, again, it's 1 week, so I'm not pushing the panic button yet. If he doesn't deliver in this spot, then we might want to think about that to say, like, how much of that was the coach, how much of that was the scheme, how much of that was the QB. I'm pulling for the kid. As far as the game goes itself, I don't really have a take on the total. I like the under, actually, when it opened at 50. I don't like it so much at 47.5, which has been bet down to. And when I say I like the under, I liked it like a little bit, just because I follow the narrative of, okay, 2 teams meet and they put up like 1,000 points the first time. They'll learn, adjust, what have you, and it'll be a little bit lower scoring. However, it's been bet down so much that I don't think there's any value in the over 47 in the under 47.5 anymore. The one other thing I want to think about from the Lions standpoint is how do they handle success? Because last year under Dan Campbell, everybody's talking about Dan Campbell. He drinks all this coffee. He's got all this energy. He's an Energizer Bunny. Everybody loves him. But they were kind of they won a few games, but they were kind of still like lovable losers. And it was like, oh, man, they came so close. Oh, they have such a bright future. Well, now they're here. They're 1-0, and they beat the defending champs on national television. So it's not necessarily what you do in that game that you had months to prepare for. Now it's what you do in a random 1 p.m. Eastern game that not as many people are going to be watching. And if they can deliver again, then it's definitely time to take this team for real. For fantasy, you're starting all the guys you normally start. If Goff is one of your 2 quarterbacks, I think that you probably have another second tier one. So you're probably going to go with Goff. I would be iffy about starting Geno in this spot because of the offensive tackle situation that I already mentioned. And I think that all of the other guys, especially from the wide receiver standpoint from Seattle, you're starting Metcalf, you're starting Lockett, and especially in PPR leagues.
Amon-Ra for sure. Amon-Ra is like you're starting him with your eyes closed.
You have to. The other one that I don't mind that much for the Lions is Sam Laporta. He ran a route on 73% of the pass plays and had 5 targets for a 14.3% target share. And this Seattle defense got absolutely torched last week. The other thing is Puka Nacua, who you talked about, Sosa, did a lot of his damage over the middle of the field, which is where Laporta runs the most of his routes. So I like it. All Laporta props for this one. I also like Laporta ATD home week, first home game. So I can definitely see him having 50 yards and a touchdown.
Is it just me, or does Laporta got a little bit more wiggle than I thought?
He's got some swag.
He got a little bit. No, yeah, little sneakiness. No, you know what I mean?
Sneaky wiggle.
A little sneaky wiggle. I'm not. You know what I mean? Like obviously your tight end has the most wiggle of any tight end ever.
All
right, like you get it. I mean. Maybe it's 87. Is it 87 that just makes tight ends look fast?
They got a little extra. Yeah, I can see it.
The number.
I was impressed with him. He had a very nice game, and I completely agree with you. That Seattle defense can be had in the middle, and so they're going to attack it with Jared Goff for sure.
Absolutely. Again, 5.5 is a purgatory number. When I see a number get to 5.5 and stay there for a bit for a prolonged period of time, I'm usually going to take the 5.5. I know people are looking for me to be the eye test guy all the time, and I usually am. But in this one, it's 1:00 start. Big emotional drop off from week 1 against the Chargers to playing Geno Smith, or against the Chiefs that didn't go to play Geno Smith. It's just,
That's what I said. To me, the mark of when you can transition a team from being like an up and comer to a successful team is how do they handle success? Because if in most of the last years, the Lions, maybe they would have fought so hard, but the Chiefs would have pulled it out in the end. Well, it's like, okay, now it's real. Now you're here. And now you got to follow that up with not nearly as much fanfare. That's what I mean about handling success. I believe that Campbell will do everything that he can to have him ready because I love that man as a coach. But how will this still relatively young team handle being the hunted versus the hunter, so to speak?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the same page. On to our next matchup, big AFC clash between two teams that have been pretty good over the last couple of seasons. The Tennessee Titans hosting the Los Angeles Chargers. Last week, we saw Ryan Tannehill with his head up his ass for 4 quarters, single-handedly cost his team the game. We also saw the Chargers pretty much execute their offense to a T while their genius defensive mind of a head coach continues to do dickhead shit and just lose games. He sucks. He's the worst. He might be the worst head coach in the entire league. Staley might be the worst head coach in the entire NFL. And I feel bad for Herbert. I don't really feel bad for a lot of guys, especially when they get paid. You know what I mean? Like you just got $250 million. You got 250 million reasons to not feel bad for yourself. Feel sorry for yourself. But my God, if they don't get Staley the fuck out of there, they're going to waste a prototype superstar level quarterback. I swear to God, they can get him the fuck out of LA. I have to say that, and I will continue to state it just like that. They need to get him out of there. He's horrible. With that being said, in this game, 2.5 point spread over under a 46.5, and the Chargers favored at -140. The Lions dropped to 2.5 for a reason. I personally believe that the Titans are going to fight. I think it's a low-scoring game. No Austin Eckler. It's looking like he's trending towards not playing in this one. He was highly effective against Miami, but again, I don't put any stock in that game because it's not the same team that they're facing this week. I don't give a fuck about what they did last week. It has zero bearing on what we're about to see, right? Like nothing we saw last week really matters, except for the players that got hurt. And the Chargers lost players that are going to be that they needed to be effective against this Titans team. Close game. I'm not going to pick a winner live or on the show, but I am going to say that I like the Titans to fight at the crib. I don't want to come off as a hater to the Chargers, but that defense is still built like a house of cards. Not only that, their players are fucking stupid. J.C. Jackson, what the fuck are you doing
Whew, he got worked.
What the fuck are you doing, brother?
He got worked.
On a play to end the half, you give them 3 points. Again, undisciplined and just fucking dumb. So I think Vrabel game plans, a lot of Derrick Henry. Do I trust Joshua Kelly in the passing game to replace Eckler? God, I hope so. I picked him up on every fantasy team. but you know, that's my thoughts. I think it's a close matchup. I like Kelly to score a touchdown if he does play. Maybe a goal line look. I also love Mike Williams in this matchup. I love Mike Williams' matchup in this one. The corners are little guys. He's obviously 6'5", red zone guy. Can also get vertical. I like him in this matchup. I mean, he don't quite have the moves like a Olave who we saw get off last week, but one-on-ones when he plays and when he plays these little corners, he balls out.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be my looks and thoughts in this one, and it's on to the next one. Spin, and then we'll get the DMAC
right.
thoughts and analysis.
All right. So, yeah, there's a reason why Joshua Kelly was my number one. Actually, it was like 1A, 1B, right just ahead of Kenneth Gainwell. But for guys that play on Sunday and beyond, was my number one recommended fantasy target. And actually, for people that followed me in the preseason, you would probably already have him on your team. So I wonder if Austin Eckler was more hurt than the team let on last week. And here's why. Kelly actually matched him with 16 carries. So they both had an equal number of carries in a game that just featured a shit ton of passing and was close the whole way. So, you know, I know that he technically sustained the ankle injury in the third quarter, but Kelly was close to pacing him before that. So Eckler is almost for sure going to be out. Kelly, you can take all props for rushing. You can take props for touches, for if there is rush attempts plus receptions, you can take that. They like this kid, and especially Kellen Moore likes this kid. This is a perfect fit in the Kellen Moore offense, and a perfect complementary piece to Eckler when he's healthy. So I think that you can take any Joshua Kelly prop. Also like him to score a TD. So you picked him up. That was
glad you said that, my friend.
That was a smart decision.
Now I feel smarter.
Yep, smart decision. For the rest of them, for fantasy, I think that you can. I mean, anybody that you would normally start, you're obviously starting Herbert. I mean, you should not play fantasy anymore if you consider ever benching Derrick Henry against anybody. Keenan Allen probably has to start for you. He had a 27.2% target share last week, 6 catches, 76 yards. That is right in line for what you'd want for somebody from where you drafted him. And I agree with Sosa about Mike Williams, and I'm looking at Mike Williams too in DFS tournaments. So with Mike Williams, you get a high degree of variance. We joke, the guys I watch football with, we're like, he's either getting like 2 catches for like 14 yards or 4 catches for 120 and a touchdown. Like there's just such a wide range of outcomes. However, he is going against smaller corners, like you said. Amani Hooker is already out, and with Eckler out, they're presumably going to pass more. And right now, he's only projected to be owned by 9% of people playing DFS. That is, there's a high variance, but there's also a high reward as well. As far as the game goes itself, I have a slight lean on the under since it's been bet up to 46. But that's just a lean. It's probably not something that I'm actively looking to put any money on. And it's just interesting too. We talked about this before the show about why, like, even with the news with Eckler being out, the line only moved from 3 to 2.5. Tells me that Vegas has a lot of confidence in the Chargers. And I got to be quite honest with you, with some of Staley's, Sosa, I agree with you, just inexplicable coaching decisions and game planning. I don't know if I can buy the hype. So I don't know if I can get behind a Chargers team flying across the country in the situation that they're in. But
worst coach in the fucking league, bro.
But the line being set how it is and not moving, even with the news of Eckler likely being out, just, I don't know. It makes me concerned about going to the Titans. So this is probably one where, except for props, I'm not going to have any other money on.
Vegas thinks Tannehill is ass. That's it, man. I think
Well,
they
that's
think
true.
he's cooked. I think like the bookmakers in Vegas are just like, this motherfucker's cooked. Like
That's got to be it.
that's got to be it. Like that's the old that for them to be like immediate dogs at home after like bro, like New Orleans is a damn good football team. They're
An
a damn good
excellent.
on both sides of the ball. They're damn good, bro.
Mhm. And that's exactly what that speaks out to me. Obviously, we saw the Titans offense struggle last week against the Saints defense that I think is one of the best in the league. They showed it on the back half of the schedule last year. That has continued so far into week one. So as I look at this game, I do have a strong lean as far as the Titans winning this game. I do think that they get the job done. Derrick Henry is going to be able to run against this defense that Brandon Staley has never once tried to stop the run. It's never been in his defensive game plan. That never will be in his defensive game plan. Derrick Henry's going to have a day. I think that they could still be effective using DeAndre Hopkins in the intermediate sections of this team. They went out and paid J.C. Jackson a whole bunch of money and tried to make him a zone corner. He's not a zone corner. He's a man corner, and they continue to try and put him in these situations in which he can't play well.
He might just be asked, though. I mean, he might just be a product of
But
Bill.
that also is certainly part of it. But so yeah, and as far as defensively is concerned, no Austin Eckler. That is their safety blanket as far as getting the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands. That defensive line for the Titans, it just consistently takes away the run game. And they are able to do that on a consistent basis. They do that against even really good run teams. And so I expect that to continue over here. It's going to make it one-dimensional. That means it's going to be on Justin Herbert, throwing to guys. Mike Williams, obviously, against those smaller corners, I expect to have a good day. Keenan Allen inside. Quinn Johnston, we'll see what ends up happening with him as well. But Justin Herbert, it's going to be on him to try and create against a very good Titans defense. I'm a little bit concerned about that outcome. I think Mike Vrabel has a very good game plan for trying to put a little bit of cap on this. Lower scoring game, keeps it as a dog fight more so, and the Titans pull out a close win.
All right. Appreciate that. Now let's get on to our next matchup. Listen, it's a later start. This game probably would be at the end of the show. However, on Monday night, we saw the hippie himself tear his Achilles tendon. I felt so sick, man. I've never felt bad for a Jets fan a day in my fucking life. Monday, I came very close. Listen, and I didn't even like. I'm not like a big Aaron Rodgers guy. Like I'm a fan. I'm fairly aware of how talented he is, and I'm everybody has fucking YouTube, right? Like we know. Look at the throws, man. Some would say he's underachieved as a professional as far as the team ranks because it's a team sport. As an individual, his accolades and career is undeniable. You could give a fuck if you like him or not. The numbers side, he's a stat nerd's dream. An NFL stat nerd's dream is Aaron Rodgers. Very, very sick about that. I hurt for him. I feel bad for Garrett Wilson because I drafted him in a bunch of fantasy leagues because of Aaron Rodgers. Even though he's really talented, a good year, but damn, man, that shit hurt. On the other side, the Cowboys going for the New York double back-to-back weeks, beat the shit out of the Giants. Now they get the Jets with Zach Wilson. I don't think Zach Wilson is good, but he can't be any fucking worse than he was last year. If he is as bad as he was last year, then man, like the personnel department sucks at doing everything except drafting quarterbacks. Or they suck at everything. They suck at drafting quarterbacks. Everything else they're good at. You know what I mean? So let's hope that Wilson learns some things. Hopefully, whatever drugs Rodgers was on, he was willing to share. Cowboys, obviously. I think you're on mute, Spin.
Yeah, you might.
I was gonna say, maybe he needs to go into one of those drug-induced things that Rodgers did in South America or whatever. Well, you know what I'm saying?
There's some darkness retreats, hopefully, to find.
That's what it was. Yeah,
I'm all for experimental medication. I'm all for all that. I'm all for it. I advocate for it. But yeah, we just got to pray. We're going to keep Aaron Rodgers in our prayers and Zach Wilson. Because he gotta go face Michael Parsons and that
Dexter Lawrence.
That just looked amazing. They looked fucking unstoppable. If you had the defense and special teams in fantasy, if you were losing after the game, you were winning. That's how good the defense and special teams was on Sunday.
Cowboys. Yep.
Insanity. pass rush rotation looks crazy. Defensive backs are crazy. Trayvon Diggs getting a strip. Gilmore on the other side looking like the same guy from a couple of years ago. I say all that to say I'm praying for Zach Wilson this week. I hope he can perform. I have no bets in this game because Rodgers isn't playing. There's nothing for me to bet on. I just kind of wanted to sound like it was an obituary. I know Salah doesn't want to believe it, but I think by like week 6, they might enter the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. I hear the entire world saying the defense. Listen, the defense is going to keep them in games. They're not going to win them for them, though.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Defense is going to win it. They're going to keep them in games. Mm-hmm. And I also think that if Wilson throws the ball on anything other than third down while they're within 6 points or less, fire every fucking body with a headset on. I'm dead serious. I wouldn't on third down. That's it. Defense is A1. They're going to keep them in games. It's about what goes on between here for Zach Wilson.
And it's a scary proposition for the Jets.
Any thoughts from any of you? Because like I said, I got no bets or action. Like I said, I just wanted to that was the Jets obituary for me because I think they're going to get smacked the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Jets defense should keep them in this game for, maybe a quarter or two. Eventually, Dallas will find some answers. Obviously, we saw Josh Allen decide to give the ball away on a multitude of occasions. That ended up keeping that game close between the Bills and the Jets. I don't think the Cowboys will do that. We'll see what Brandon Cooks ends up playing with that MCL injury, but still, even so, I think they'll have enough to pull away from a Jets team that you came into the season, big weakness, offensive line. You said that Aaron Rodgers, with his mind and his arm talent, was going to be able to cover up for that. Aaron Rodgers is not there. Zach Wilson is going to have to cover up for that. He won't be able to cover up for that. I like Gary Wilson a lot. These are two very good corners for the Dallas Cowboys, and their defensive line had win rates out the wazoo against the Giants' offensive line. And this Jets' offensive line isn't as good as the Giants' offensive line. So Zach Wilson will be under duress consistently throughout the day, and it won't end well. Low scoring game for the Jets, to say the least, and the Cowboys get a comfortable win, in my opinion.
All right. For me, I look at this game as probably nothing on the actual game itself. The one prop that I am looking at, though, is Dalvin Cook over in carries. Breece Hall is still on a pitch count coming back from the injury, and to both of your excellent points, which I totally agree with, is that it would be suicide if the Jets decided to let Wilson just be a drop back passer and chuck all game. So they're going to have to control the clock. The way they stay in this game, obviously, is going to be running the football and playing stout defense. And that's what's going to keep them in this game. Take points whenever they're available. And so Dalvin Cook right now, I believe, is projected for around 14 or 15 carries. But either way, I like his total carries to go over because he's going to probably have to play a little more than he did in week 1 if you're going to rush the ball that much. And the Jets have been very, very adamant that they are not going to overextend Breece Hall early. So, if you're expecting a repeat performance from week 1 for Breece Hall, you have to remember how efficient he was last week to get that. I mean, 127 yards on 10 carries. I don't think against this Dallas defense, many teams are going to average 12.7 yards per carry. So, and then you factor in Wilson, and now they've had a week to prepare.
Except the Niners. The Niners.
What's that?
The Niners could probably.
The Niners probably could. Yeah, there's a few teams that could, but not this one.
Anytime I get to throw shade on the Cowboys,
not this one.
Do it every time.
Yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I'm not a huge fan of Dak starting this week because of the Jets D. Especially since they just shut down Josh Allen and forced him into so many turnovers, and Brandon Cooks, like D-Mac said, is probably going to miss this game with his MCL. So Pollard, I think you have to start if you have him. And CeeDee Lamb, you have to start if you have him, but don't expect a ceiling game for this one because he's going up against Sauce. So I would be happy with whatever CD gives me, and what I'd be hoping for is just a short touchdown at some point during the game. If you get that, I would be ecstatic. But if you're expecting like a normal CD game, like 100 some yards and 2 touchdowns, I think you're going to be disappointed for this one. But other than that, I mean, both defenses, if you have them, you're going to start them anyway. And there's really not a whole lot else to like from a fantasy perspective.
And
Garrett Wilson, 2 touchdowns. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
You also got to keep in mind with those quarterbacks, like if you don't have somebody on the other side pushing the point total up, the quarterbacks aren't necessarily going to put up a great fantasy day. We saw it literally in week 1 with the Giants and Cowboys. Dak didn't have a good fantasy day because he didn't have to do much because their defense was killing them. So also a very good point there.
Yep, agreed.
He didn't have to clock in. Like, they didn't need him.
Nope.
The game was over after about 10 minutes. It was fucking done. Like, he didn't need hand off. But at that point, that's where the game becomes your receivers are on the sideline like, yo, let me get one. Because they know you're not going to throw the ball. They're just like, yo, like, change it at the line. Like, let me get one, bro. Like, come on. It's the opening night. Dak's like, man, shut the fuck up.
That's what AJ Brown did on Thursday.
He was mad as shit.
And then did you see they went to him in the end zone 2 straight times?
Immediately, like, all right, man, we get it. You want the ball, but we don't need that shit was funny, but it is what it is. The game is the game. On to a bit of an interesting matchup. A couple of teams that I would say didn't perform well. One got a win, one didn't. Big AFC divisional matchup. The Bengals on their second divisional game in 2 weeks. Big time. Taking on the Ravens at home at Paycor Stadium. Both these quarterbacks did not perform well last week. Obviously, Lamar Jackson taking on the Houston Texans. I would like to credit the Houston Texans defense, young, but D'Amico Ryans had those boys flying around, making plays, looking really good. All of you dickheads that told me that Will Anderson wasn't going to correlate to the NFL, I think after one game, you're probably going to shut the fuck up and not say anything that stupid again about football players. Pretty fucking terrible take if you didn't like him coming into the league. I know people like Bosa and all these. I'm a Bosa guy. Chase, he's better than Chase Young. I know, and Chase Young he's better than Chase Young. I think he's equally as good as Aiden Hutchinson. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson got the J.J. Watt steroids, so he's going to progressively get better, right? So like that's part of it. But Will Anderson is really, really good. So yeah, I just had to throw that rant in. I don't really care. I had to do that because we're not covering that game. Nobody wants to talk about the Houston Texans and the fucking Colts.
The Colts.
I'm sorry, not to be rude. But Lamar Jackson did not perform well, looked rusty, turned the ball over. And then, they obviously won a game against a team that they were clearly more talented than going up against a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. And then what is there to really say about the Bengals? I mean, I think at this point, after the game, they just hit each other with the Will Smith neuralizer like it never happened. And then we just move forward. That's what I would be doing. I wouldn't even think of that shit. That was practice, preseason, whatever you want to call it. I'm not going to make excuses. It was bad. I think everyone who watched the game knows that Joe Burrow didn't perform well. The offense was stagnant. And then they get another divisional game. They're not going to see the same pass rush that they saw last week. However, we do have to give the Baltimore Ravens credit. They did do a very good job of generating pressure. Ojabo with the strip sack looked really good, looked fresh, looked like he's fully back from injury. So who knows? Those edge guys could develop into something. We obviously usually trend towards not believing in a player until we see it, right? So you got to show me. In this particular matchup, I got the Ravens winning the game by a point, or the Bengals winning the game by a point. What I mean to say is it's going to be a 1-point game. And if it's a 1-point game, it means either team can really take it. It's too close to call for me. I think both teams do perform better. You build your team to compete against the guys in the division. No Marlon Humphrey, probably tough. I think Jamar Chase probably gets off, performs well. I think he gets force-fed the ball a bit. I think him and T. Higgins can perform well. More so Jamar Chase, because I think Jamar Chase, I think he's an elite receiver. I know people love T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is just basically a skinny tight end. But that's just my thoughts on it. Really, really good receiver. But that's just me. I think he gets a lot of looks that tight ends would. And That's why he's been ultra effective with Joe Burrow. That's just my opinion, and I can have that. 1-point game, close one. But I do like the over. I like the over. I think that both teams will score points, and I think that we're expecting a rock fight, but I think that both defenses can be had, and I think that both teams can be successful given the personnel on the offensive side of the ball for both sides. Baltimore has never had a Zay Flowers in this offense, and with the new offense, going up against a Bengal team who, still going to have some growing pains with the players they replaced, Jesse Bates with. Wow. Jesse Bates sucks, by the way, 3 turnovers in week 1. But we'll talk about that some other time. That's just my take, my thoughts. It's going to be an interesting game. I do like the over. That's my favorite play in the game. I like the over. We're not going to get into a bunch of props. I like the over. I think both teams put up points. I think it's a lot more offensive game than people think. And I think that people are going to want to start both these teams in fantasy defense, and they're going to be fucking sick.
All right. What's that? Oh, yeah.
Whoever wants to give their thoughts. I know D-Mac has a lot to say about this matchup.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
He's an AFC because his team plays in the AFC, and both these teams are AFC opponents. That's why.
Look, I'm going to be extremely fascinated with this matchup. I'm kind of upset that it's in the same window as the Chiefs-Jaguars matchup. I would be keying up a little bit more. I'm probably going to go back and just watch this after it ends because I'll be fascinated. The Ravens, on their offensive side, Lamar did not play up to standard, like you said, struggled a little bit, had to knock off some of that rust. They haven't had a Zay Flowers, I agree, and I think that's going to open up a lot of stuff for them. I look to see them try to get Odell a little bit more involved. He got targets, but wasn't able to really secure that connection. I think this Bengals defense is a better, especially with that offensive line. It's going to challenge them not to simply just run the ball over them like they kind of was able to against the Texans. I think they're going to have to throw the ball. And I think that will lead to points because Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback, and he now has weapons to get the ball to. I expect Mark Andrews to play. We'll end up seeing if that comes to fruition. Flip side, the Bengals should take advantage of this Bengals defense. The Bengals should take advantage of this Ravens defense. Without Marlowe, without their starting safety, they can generate pressure, but Joe Burrow has always been very good about getting the ball out, especially when he sees extra guys coming after him. He should be able to be effective with Jabbar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. If they don't, then there's a serious issue. There is a serious issue if the Bengals do not put up points in this game. As far as picking the game, it could go either way. I like you said, you like the over. Completely makes sense. I think both of these offenses are going to be able to get off of these defenses, but I am not sure which way it goes. I think it's going to be a fascinating game to watch, though, so certainly entertaining.
Cool. So with regards to the offenses, agree on the overlook. But, when I even think back to Lamar's game last week, he had a bad fantasy start and he had a bad prop start, but he didn't have a bad real football start. He completed 77% of his passes, had 7.7 yards per attempt and 6.3 yards per carry. But he ran and passed less than usual because he didn't have to, because they were so dominant in other phases of the game. So with Dobbins now out, facing a much better offense on the road, I would certainly expect this to be a more traditional game than like what I had expected preseason with Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. Monken has always been a pass first guy. He's a vertical guy. And what was shocking to me at first, but then when I went back and thought about it, it made a lot of sense, was this is Todd Monken and Greg Roman could not be on different ends of the spectrum as far as what their philosophy is. So Lamar has not had a whole lot of time to get used to Monken's philosophy. So when you go and you look at a kid like Zay Flowers, which Sosa in VIP, who was the first rookie I touted all summer, it was this kid. It was Zay Flowers. I love this kid. He had 45% of the Ravens' targets last week, but his average depth of target was only 2.8 yards. So what that means is that all of his looks were right around the line of scrimmage. I think that was on purpose. I think that Monken wanted to have a lot of short throws, a lot of easy throws, a lot of confidence building throws, because they knew on the other side they would be able to dominate the Texans in pretty much every other aspect of the game. So I think you'll probably see him open it up as the season goes on. And look, Monken is who he is. He's not going to all of a sudden go to be this like run first guy when he's been 62 or more percent pass pretty much everywhere he's gone in his career. So Lamar props, Zay Flowers props. I think you can get some Lamar props, especially some of the passing ones, at a discounted rate because of the performance last week. I mean, look, for fantasy, if you have Joe Burrow, you're starting him. If you have Jamar Chase, you're starting him. If you have T. Higgins, you're starting him. If you have Joe Mixon, you're starting him. For the Baltimore backs, if you happen to have one, for me personally, I prefer Justice Hill slightly especially in a PPR format because he has more speed. He's a better bet for receptions, but I would be very, very cautious about over trusting either guy so far. So like, for example, if you have a guy like let's say you have Kyron Williams or Brian Robinson, Khalil Herbert, those guys, or Justice Hill, I would start all of those guys over Justice Hill. I'd start all of those guys over Gus Edwards. I think you have to wait and see about how they deploy these backs. As far as the game goes itself, agree on the overlook, and I don't want to pick a side on this one. This is essentially a pick 'em game, and I think that if they played, I think if they played in Baltimore, Baltimore would be a 3-point favorite. If they played in Cincinnati, Cincinnati would be a 3-point favorite, and if they played on a neutral field, it would be a pick 'em. That's how close these teams are. So I don't want anything to do with that part.
All right, moving along. Next game we're on is a divisional matchup. Dolphins coming off a huge win against the Los Angeles Chargers, while the Patriots' hard-fought game against the Eagles came up short at home. Obviously, the Eagles' defensive line just looked insane. They looked like just the greatest fucking pass rush of all time. They were insane. And, obviously, what's there to say much about the Miami Dolphins? Tua looked locked in. Tyreek Hill, the best weapon in football. Not too much else to say. Listen, in this particular ball game, I lean towards the Dolphins winning the game. I think that McDaniel, from a game planning standpoint, has been outstanding. I think that he will be outstanding. I think that that's what we're going to really see a lot of from the Dolphins, is that he played these teams last year, and I just believe that Mike McDaniel will have the answers. I think he's Sway. I think he's not Sway. I think he really has the answers. I think he's going to actually go into this game and be able to exploit his strengths and the offense be relatively good. It will be on the New England Patriots to match them. I believe that's the case. Obviously, for 4 quarters, Belichick's going to throw wrinkles at you. That pass rush is really good. They could get to Tua. I'm not disputing that. I just think that from a game plan standpoint, it's very, very difficult to do to win when your offense can't match the firepower that Miami does have. So we'll in this, like I said, that's my thought process. I think I lean the over, and I lean towards Miami just simply because of the firepower they have on offense. Patriots defense, you've heard me say a lot of good things about them. Extremely talented unit, very well coached. But I lean Miami in this one personally. Not too much for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very interested again in this matchup from the standpoint of last year. They were able to hold Miami in both games to 20 and 21 points. The second matchup was with Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson. Obviously, Tua played a hell of a week one. Certainly seemed to be better with anticipation, more comfortable in the offense. So I believe that they could be held within that 24-point area-ish. Mac Jones, I thought, played a good game against the Eagles. The X factor to me within the entire game is this. Christian Wilkins on the inside against that interior of the offensive line for the Patriots. Jalen Carter had an amazing game in week one against that interior offensive line of the Patriots. Christian Wilkins, can he kind of replicate that, keep that Patriots offense that is improved because they actually have a real offensive play caller, designing their game plan under that 20-point mark? Dolphins can get out of there with the win. If not, if Christian Wilkins can't have that level of impact, then this is a game that Miami might be able to drop. I do expect them to put up a fair amount of points. I think they can find holes in the Patriots secondary, though it'll be difficult. Certainly won't be as easy as it was going up against the Chargers. Like I said earlier, McDaniels did some absolutely diabolical things with motions before the snap to set up, their weapons at an effective level. So I think they will get points, 24-27 for some type of Miami point total. Whatever Christian Wilkins is able to put out there is going to decide if the Patriots can try to match them, like you said, Sosa.
All right. I don't know if you saw the recent just came out about the reason why Bill Belichick won't retire yet is and why he wants to pass Don Shula is because Shula badmouthed him during Spygate. So that's such a Belichick move. That is such a Belichick move. So for as far as the game goes itself, look, I'm looking just like they did last week with AJ Brown, is to use bracket coverage and doubles, etc., to take away your best option. In this case, it is very clearly Tyreek Hill, and it's also the option that Tua just has laser locked on him. So, over the last few times that Belichick has faced, or the one time actually they faced Tua, I'm not convinced that Tua has developed enough as a quarterback to pick up on that every time. So what I like in this one is I actually like a lot of Jalen Waddle props because I think that he'll be able to see some single coverage, especially early. 62.5 receiving yards is not enough for me. So I will take the over on that one pretty easily. I also like his receptions prop. I think that as the game goes on, I think that because of what you mentioned, Sosa, because McDaniel, I mean, from a play calling perspective, I mean, let's face it, like he is that guy and he's proving he's that guy. So I think that he'll call a lot more looks for Waddle. And so his receptions are at 4.5 at plus 105. I think you can take a small shot on the over for that one. As far as the game goes itself, I might be on an island here, but I actually have the Patriots winning this one outright. I really do. And I like given the dichotomy that I just talked about with Tua, maybe early too, not necessarily recognizing that, hey, they have this number 10 fellow blanketed. I have a whole host of other receivers, and I have a couple tight ends, and I have all these other guys that I can throw to. With the Patriots at plus 130 right now, there's enough value for me to take a shot on them. There's also what I also like probably a little more is Patriots money line first half for the reasons that I mentioned of if they're going to blanket and bracket Tyreek and basically take away the best option, is that I'm not sure that Tua is going to pick up on that right away. I've seen that happen before where throws get forced to whoever his preferred receiver is at the time. It's usually Tyreek. And so I would expect the Patriots to take advantage of that. So I also think you can take a shot on the Patriots first half spread, Patriots first half money line. There's probably a little more safety in that before McDaniels goes into the locker room and makes adjustments at halftime.
I also say really quickly for fantasy purposes, if you're needy at the tight end position, Hunter Henry had a very good game last week.
Mm-hmm.
This Miami defense is soft in the middle. We saw Donald Parham have a good game against them, get in the end zone. I think Hunter Henry is a guy that they will continue to target when they get into the red zone as well for this Patriots offense. I think he should have a good day as well.
I like that look.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I like it. Yeah, man. I think we're going to see points. I think people think it's going to be a defensive struggle, but I think
Belichick in the 20s. Yeah,
I think Belichick is for sure like listen, because you look at the games last year, second half, Patriots pretty much smoked them.
Mm-hmm.
They just couldn't score points.
Yep.
Defensively, though, they kept them off the field. Like they did everything you could ask for defensively. So we'll move on to the last two matchups of the week. Not going to spend a ton of time on this one. 49ers, Rams. We've beaten them the last 8 times that we've played them in the regular season. It has not been close. Okay? Only 3 coaches in the history of football have 9-game winning streaks against other head coaches. All right? In the history of football. Kyle gets to 9. All you Rams fans that were on top of the world, I would say go buy a couple of pillows because coming crashing down to earth today or this week, bro. You're getting. It's going to come crashing down fast, fast, and all you're going to say is, "Man, Bosa, Jackson, Armstead, Hargrave." You're going to be wishing that Stetson Bennett didn't do whatever he did. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't think they'll hurt Matthew Stafford like that, but
hopefully
it's
not.
possible. It's possible. I like the Niners to win, cover. If we're going to win, we're going to cover. I don't trust this Rams team. We're nowhere near as soft on the back end. We're nowhere near as soft in the middle of the field. Try doing all that bullshit against Fred Warner. Good luck. Good luck. Puka Nacua, he's got a cute name. Probably gets 6-7 catches.
I don't know. He's hurt.
He showed up on the injury report.
Might score a touchdown. Might score a touchdown. And this is how the replay is going to go. Touchdown, Puka Nacua. And the Rams cut the lead to 33-7. That's what it'll probably be like. Niners winning cover. Give me all things Deebo Samuel. Give me all things George Kittle. And give me all things San Francisco 49ers defense. Couple of picks. A few turnovers, would not be surprised. I'd bet every single defensive lineman to get a sack because you're going to get them all at plus money except for Bosa. I expect domination. Like I said, undefeated.
Yep. Remember how I said that teams that really showed up that you didn't expect in week one are never as good as how they perform? Well, the LA Rams would be one of these teams. So they're not as good as they showed here. And this goes back to my point originally about how when you have months upon months to prepare for your week one opponent and you have a coach like Sean McVay and you do the things that they did. Look, they did a lot of very un-Ram-like things, ran a lot of creative scheming on offense, and it worked. It confused Seattle. Their defense was confused, and they didn't know which way was up. I don't think you're going to have that this week. It's probably not going to happen now. And now you only have a week to prepare instead. So agree with the Deebo Samuel look because even though Brandon Ayuk was the story for the passing game, Deebo only trailed him by one target, and he actually ran 34 routes compared to Ayuk's 30. So you have that disparity game after game after game. And look, the cream's going to rise to the top. That's Deebo. We already talked about Puka Nacua is on the injury report. I can see him getting potentially a lot of catches, but I don't necessarily know about a lot of yards. It's a little bit different again when you come out of nowhere versus, I mean, it's the same thing with the Lions that I talked about. Is like, now you're the hunted. Now it's like, okay, you made your statement. You made your statement. You showed us who you were. Now we're going to show you who we are.
They'll get a 40-yard catch when they're down 30. And look, the bottom line is the 49ers just have top to bottom way too much talent, way more talent than the Rams. I think that this game goes one of two ways, and neither one would surprise me. Is that the Rams fight, claw, and keep this game to within a possession, and it's kind of a rock fight, or the Niners just blow them the fuck out of the water, and this is 17-0 before you can blink. I don't see any in between here. That's my take on this game. So whichever one you think is going to happen or has a better chance of happening, I know which one I do. It's probably the latter. That's what I'd be going with.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. Too much talent. Too many weapons on each side of the ball. Sosa obviously hit on it, but you're talking about Kittle, Deebo, Ayuk, CMC out of the backfield, a really good offensive line. They're going to dominate this Rams defense. They're going to have a plan for Aaron Donald. They don't have the other 10 guys on the field that they can really give problems for. So I expect them to put up points early and often. Rams defense, unfortunately, just isn't going to be able to stop them. And look, the Rams offense, McVay is going to scheme up some things. They'll get some points, whether it's in garbage time or maybe early on to keep the game within a possession as far as halftime is concerned. But at some point, the Niners will pull away because they're going to take away the middle of the field, and that's where Stafford and McVay like to make their hay. So I'm with you guys. I don't think this is close, and I think the Niners are able to win.
One last thing just for fantasy. And I think that if you have Nakua in a PPR, I don't know if I'd start him over any of your regular starters, but I think that if you're desperate, if you need help, he can be a wide receiver 3 or a flex play. The one that I wanted to focus on, though, was Cam Akers. You can't start Cam Akers in this game. I know you probably drafted him a little bit higher, probably in the middle rounds, but I mean, he trailed. Well, he was way behind Kyron Williams in passing game usage, and he also needed some late clock killing drives to really beat him even in playing time. So when you have a game where game script certainly favors passing for the Rams because they're projected to be down, and Cam Akers not being used in the passing game, Cam Akers should be nowhere near a fantasy lineup this week. As far as Kyron Williams goes, I think that Kyron Williams is probably better served in DFS, not necessarily in fantasy. So I guess in a PPR, if you let's say you own J.K. Dobbins and you're thin at running back, yeah, maybe, but I would just try to use none of the Rams running game this week. I don't know if it'll be pretty. Maybe one of them sneaks in a short touchdown, maybe. Or maybe one of them late can bust something long, but that's hopes and dreams that you're counting on, not actual statistical fact. So I would probably leave them and most other Rams options on the bench this week.
Cam went 22 carries for 23 yards, I think it was.
Yeah,
that's or 29 yards. I would be seriously concerned if you were counting on Cam Akers to be your running back this year. Kyron Williams is going to get a lot of the passing down work. They are mostly going to be behind in a lot of games as far as they go on throughout this season, and I think they certainly will apply here against San Francisco. It's not going to be great for you.
I know y'all were expecting one matchup, but we're going to get to that one after this one, just because we're good on time right now. Game I want to get into is Paul Bunyan versus Jimmy G.
How bold are you going to be here? This is fascinating to me. I want to see. Where's your head at, Sosa?
Listen, the Bills better not lose this game. They better not fucking lose this game. They lose this game, boy, it's going to get ugly in Bills Mafia. Listen, I've heard Bills fans fucking lie. Well, 2 of the picks, they counted as like punts. That's what they said to me, bro. 2 of the picks counted as punts. You'd rather him throw the ball and it land inside the 20 to the other team. That's what some Bills fans told me this last few days, and I was just like, wow, okay, well.
I don't think it works that way.
Yeah, your quarterback doesn't get paid to punt the ball. That's not how that works.
Either way, man, they face this amazing generational defense in New York that everyone, loves. I think that the Raiders' skill position players could give these guys problems. It's going to come down to if Jimmy G turns over the ball. I mean, I wasn't impressed with the Bills' defense, and they fucking faced Zach Wilson. How can you judge anything? He sucks. Well, at least we think, for what we know of the guy, he sucks. Like what we think, maybe we was talking about this earlier. Maybe we don't know, but from what we've seen, he's ass, right? So are you really going to judge the fucking pick to Milano? What was he looking at? He literally threw it to a blue jersey. So, I think the Bills are the better complete football team. I do think from a talent standpoint on the offensive side of the ball, they can match up with it. The Raiders can match up with anybody. Obviously, Jacoby Myers looking like he's trending to not play. He was magnificent for them in week 1, moved the chains, was very, very effective in the offense. If Myers doesn't play, give me the white boy, Renfro. I like Renfro to hoop. I think he plays. I think he will play well against them. And I think Jimmy G can be effective. It's all about, will he turn the ball over? That's Jimmy G. I like the Bills, but I don't like them to cover. I think Jimmy G and them boys keep it tight. Pause. A lot closer than people think. I think it keeps it a lot closer than people think. Everybody's expecting, the Bills are just going to come out and beat the shit out of them. Don't agree. I think the game goes over. I think I saw a stat where like the last 7 times these two teams have played, the game has gone over. So expect points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On both sides, not just Buffalo
Absolutely.
coming out and beating the shit out of them. Weather's not going to be bad. Barring bad weather, the Raiders going to score. They're going to score points. The defense is ass. They're going to try to bend and not break. They'll break a lot, but that's what you're going to get from them. They have the playmakers. They have the skill guys. Can your defense hold a team to 3 field goals instead of 3 touchdowns to give the offense a chance? That's the Raiders.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, that 9.5 would scare me if you were backing the Bills here. That would be concerning to me. I think the Bills do win this game, but to Sosa's point, they are going to try it and bend their coverage to take away Davante Adams as much as possible, and even that won't work because Davante Adams is still going to have a good game regardless. But that is going to be tough to deal with Hunter Renfrow still. I'm going to be very interested to see. They didn't use the tight ends much. How much does Michael Mayer get involved here trying to get that work? I think they can get Josh Jacobs rolling on the ground here. He didn't have a great game versus the Broncos. I think he will have a better success against the Bills here and that rush defense. So I agree with you. I think there is points put up by both sides. McDaniels is a solid offensive coach. I expect him to be able to be successful there. Bounce back game for the Bills offense. Josh Allen still playing that very high variance, high risk, high reward type of game. I think Gabe Davis catches a long touchdown in this game. I still don't believe in the Raiders secondary. I think there are holes there to be exploited. Again, for fantasy purposes, Stephon Diggs, start him. Of course, he'll always have a good game. I'm going to be extremely fascinated to see what their offensive philosophy is against not an elite defense. Do they try to get more 12 personnel in there? Do they try to get James Cook rolling here? Or is it simply bombs away per usual? Points put up by both sides. 9.5 is too steep for me to feel good about trying to take the Bills to cover that. But I do think they win the game ultimately.
All right. There's one stat that I see that tells me everything I need to know about what side you should be on if you're betting the spread. This game opened at an 8 last Sunday, and it's been one of the more bet games this week. 67% of the bets and 95% of the money are on the Bills, and it's moved a 0.5 point. That tells you everything you need to know, that the Bills is the public side. The Bills is the square side. If you're going to bet this game, you cannot take the Bills to cover unless you want to be at a disadvantage from the start. So throw out all the other stats, all the other scheming and personnel and everything from a pure betting standpoint, and what the books think will happen is that this game opened at an 8. And it's actually still at an 8 in some places, but it's moved to a 7.5 for Buffalo, but that's with 95% of money on the Bills. What that tells me is
8.5 on FanDuel right now.
That's what I'm saying. The public is destroying the Bills line, and it's barely moving. That tells you everything you need to know. For fantasy purposes, look. If you have Josh Allen, you're starting him. If you have Diggs, you're starting him. If you have James Cook, you're probably starting him. If you have Davante Adams, you're obviously starting him. Other than that, Renfrow, I like Renfrow a lot more in DFS, like a tournament format than I do in season-long leagues. I think that a sneaky stack for this game, especially if you expect this game to go over, would be Jimmy G, Renfrow, and Adams. I think that you can get the latter of the two, or the first two, for very, very cheap. You can then run it back on the other side with a Stephon Diggs. You can run it back with a James Cook. You can run it back. I mean, if you think there's going to be points in this game, I would actually look to stack the Raiders side of things and not the Bills side. Reason being is that the Raiders side is going to be far less owned. And if you expect the Raiders to hang around, then you're going to get points where not many other people do. Whereas everybody and their brother is going to have Josh Allen. Like, Josh Allen is always a public play for DFS. He's always a popular stack with Diggs, and people think they're being so smart. And then they log in and see, 40% of the tournament, of the the people have them. Josh Allen stack in DFS is something that you do when you want to just make the money. A Jimmy G stack is something that you do when, you know, you're prepared to lose it, but you could also, in big tournaments, you could make a pretty penny and you could finish high. So that's always a question that I tell people playing DFS. You got to ask yourself is, do you just want to cash, or do you want to take more risk and look and to potentially cash big? And so that's up to you. But yeah, clearly on the Raiders here for me at the +8, +8.5, even +7.5. I would be surprised if they don't keep this within a touchdown.
Perfect. On to the final matchup of the week. Probably the worst quarterback matchup you're going to get all year. I don't know why we chose to talk about this one last. You got former #1 overall pick Trevor Lawrence and some other guy that didn't even go top 10 facing off against each other in Jacksonville. A lot of teams go to Jacksonville and forget how to play football. And obviously the guy that didn't go top 10 was Patrick Mahomes, which should let you know everything about the way people analyze talent in football. They're all fucking idiots. We're all fucking idiots. But with that being said, you got two generational talents, in my opinion, facing off at quarterback. You have Dr. Frankenstein and Frankenstein in Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. Peterson played quarterback for him, offensive coordinator for years, went and finished a job he couldn't finish in Philadelphia. Now he's in Jacksonville as the head coach with a star quarterback. Chiefs coming off a loss in which their two best players on their roster, not named Patrick Mahomes, didn't play. They lost the game by 1 point. I don't know too many teams who can win, who would lose games by 1 point without their best defensive and offensive weapon. But here we are. Jacksonville beat the Colts. There were good moments. There were bad moments. The Colts defense looked good at times. Herbert. I fucked that one up. They're gonna catch me on that. I really fucked that one up. Trevor, obviously, good game, new weapon in Ridley. Looked rather in control of the offense. Can't control the way the ball bounces sometimes. Obviously, had a couple of untimely turnovers. Probably could have put up 40 if they didn't do that. Not too much to take away from the Chiefs game. Like, no Chris Jones and no Travis Kelce is huge for me. I'm not making it a big deal. If we can look at Joe Burrow stinking it up and Patrick Mahomes almost beating the Lions by his motherfucking self, both his losses, then we could just throw both fucking games out, in my opinion. That's how I look at it. I like the under in this one. I like it to barely go under. If you got a 51.5, I like them to be exactly 51 points scored in this game. I think it's a Chiefs 27-24 close ball game. Trevor Lawrence, talented quarterback, got the weapons. I don't know how good their defense is. Chiefs receivers looking to atone for a horrible showing on opening night. But I do believe that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs get in the win column this week. I like Kadarius Toney to score a touchdown. I like Sky Moore's yards. Why? Because they fucking suck. So obviously they'll be good this game. Pretty simple. We'll let D-Mac go. I know this is your team. Defending champs, 0-1. Losing in the division to the Raiders.
Yeah, look, man, I think this is obviously excellent quarterback matchup of Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes. I'm fascinated from this standpoint. Everything always falls into place from the offensive side of the ball when you have Travis Kelce there leading the receiving core. Patrick Mahomes is more comfortable. The offense operates on time and on target, especially against zone coverages. The wide receiver rotation for us is going to be interesting. Does Rashee Rice get a little bit more work because the Jaguars generally have been more of a zone-heavy team? Do they still stick with the Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney primary with MVS as well, mixing in as a deep threat? It's going to be very fascinating. Generally speaking, Andy Reid always is going to go and get confidence for his guys that he believes in. Terrible game last week for Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I expect him to find a way to get those guys involved early, try to get that confidence back up. So certainly Kadarius Toney for a touchdown makes a whole lot of sense here. On the flip side of it, Jaguars offensive line had a little bit of issues with DeForest Buckner. They were able to get some inside pressure. Kwity Paye also had a nice game off the edge, especially working against the rookie Anton Harrison. This defensive line, I thought, equipped itself pretty well without Chris Jones, given the circumstances, against a very good defense, Detroit Lions offensive line. Chris Jones coming back into play. How are they able to attack against Trevor Lawrence, who got the ball out of his hands extremely quickly? We talked about this a little bit, off before we started the show. Christian Kirk has a matchup advantage, was able to have successful games against last year. I expect him to have a solid game this year. Certainly, I think that Doug Peterson said in the press conference that he wants to get him involved. I expect that to happen. Trevor Lawrence is going to get the ball out of his hands quickly because he is an excellent quarterback. I will say, ultimately, I think that Chris Jones, Travis Kelce coming back gives his team a bolt of injury. They win 31-27-ish is probably where I'll have it, maybe 30-24, somewhere in that certain range as well. But I think we go on the road and get a good win. But look, the Jaguars are a very good team, going to be a tough test and very entertaining game all the way around.
Yeah, I'm hard pressed to disagree with any of that. I think that, just like, last week, look, the Lions looked like a good team. Kansas City is still a good team. Two good teams played, and one of them's got to lose. Did the Chiefs look their best? No, probably not. But that's why it's a 17-week regular season and not a 1-week regular season. So, Sosa talked about Mahomes carrying the team, which he for sure did, because he finishes the 6th-ranked quarterback last week stat-wise, despite all the drops and despite not having Travis Kelce. So with Kelce back, I think that you can look at Mahomes' props for yardage. I do agree with Sosa that I think this game might be a little bit lower scoring than you might have been led to believe. And for fantasy purposes, I mean, look, the Chiefs guys you were starting before, you're starting now. You're starting Mahomes, you're starting Kelce, you're starting. I mean, if your league uses a kicker, you're starting Harrison Butker. I mean, that none of that will change. Same thing with Jacksonville. I think if you have Lawrence, you start him. And I think if you did pick up or you did draft Calvin Ridley, you definitely start him. The one that I want to talk about a little bit, though, is Zay Jones. Zay Jones played over Christian Kirk in 2 wide receiver sets. He outpaced him in routes run, in snap count, and in coverage grade last week from Pro Football Focus, the Chiefs D ranked 29th. So I think that you can look at potentially a lot of Zay Jones props. He was actually, for VIPs, he was my number 1 receiving target for this week. So right now, his receiving prop is at 47.5 on DraftKings at -110. I like that one a lot. I think you can look at his catches and you can look at his yards, especially because now I think that Ridley's week 1 performance gave notice to defensive coordinators like, okay, like we got to pay attention to this guy. We got to pay a lot of attention to this guy. I think that Jones can sneak in 50 yards, especially if the game script goes as I'm thinking, which is a lot of yards, but maybe not as many points as you might think. But as far as the game goes, I mean, Kansas City is my pick for to win the game, but it's probably not something that I'm going to actively have money on.
Y'all ready for my hot take?
Do it.
Ridley run routes just like Antonio Brown, bro.
Mm-hmm.
He does. Listen, I know, and that's my favorite football player.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Listen, bro, ain't no defending him. Ain't no stopping him either. I know it sounds crazy, but bro, like, you can't stop him. Like, you can contain him, but you can't stop him, bro. There's some routes he can run that you just can't defend. You just got to pray that there's a second guy there or that your pass rush gets home. I pull up the tape of him. He was open the entire game.
Absolutely.
And we know the perimeter guys, we know that the boundary guys for Indianapolis aren't amazing. I'm not disputing that.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no technique or coverage they could have used last week to stop him. He was open the entire fucking game. It was crazy, bro. It was nuts. But yeah, again, it should be a fun game. But I don't think it's going to be this. Everyone thinks it's going to be a shootout. After last Thursday, the Chiefs are now 4-9 to the under in games where the pregame over was over 50 points. Since Tyreek Hill left, Yeah, I said it like that for a reason too. Just saying, just being realistic in what we've seen from this version of the Chiefs. It's the defense has been better. I expect the defense to come back be better again with Chris Jones. So it is what it is. I think the
I
Chiefs.
think your point though, both of you guys' points, the ways in which Calvin Ridley is able to get open, there's no way to slow him down unless you give him extra attention. So similar to last week, Spags did a whole bunch of double coverage, specifically against Amon-Ra, trying to bracket him. I expect a similar game plan, and that will allow Zay Jones and Christian Kirk to work over the middle of the field and get open.
Only issue with that is that Amon-Ra don't play the X.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah.
So like with Calvin, bro, Calvin's right there with any of those guys in the league on the outside. I mean, as far as just like simply being able to get open, right? Like that's it's a little easier to game plan a guy that's in the slot all game, right?
Right.
So again, it's going to be a pick your poison at times, and we already know what Spags really want to do. He want to bring the heat. If we're being honest, he's going to be times where Spags is going to put his guy. He's going to take chances because that's how he get down. Jim Johnson taught him that. Taught him that. That's the bring hell, bring fire. That's what you're going to get. You usually don't get it from until as the game progresses. You start to see it where he's like, okay, this gap, that gap. This is where, and sometimes it takes a little bit. Yeah. And it might look conservative, but we know what Spags want to do. Spags want to bring the heat. That's
absolutely philosophy. He's going to dial it up in the second half of the game when he finds that. And look, Trevor Lawrence did have some struggles last year against the blitz. How he's going to be able to adjust to that is going to be interesting to see throughout the season. Spags will put that to the test. But I think the Jaguars will find success as far as the offensive side of the ball. Chiefs will find a little bit. And look, your point about Tyreek Hill leaving and the under, this team is more of a deliberate offense, and he showed it all the last year. They move down the field consistently. They'll have those 7, 8, 10 play drives rather than, going for the 50-yard bombs like we saw with Tyreek Hill. That's the adjustment that they've made to both the defenses and the ways that they played them when we were too high shells. And, of course, Tyreek Hill not being there. So I agree with you. The pace is always a different aspect that needs to be taken in as far as over-under is concerned.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think makes Mahomes such an elite quarterback. I mean, there's many things, but for me, it's his ability to adjust to situations like that and understand that, okay, I'm still going to throw 35 to 40 passes, but I'm only going to get 235 to 250 yards instead of 300 to 330, and be okay with that, and not have to worry about the big play. And that's one of the things that I think separates Mahomes from Josh Allen like a lot, is that Allen gets impatient when he can't go for the big play, when he can't go for the big run, the home run ball. He gets so damn impatient. Whereas Mahomes, I mean, it's like surgical. And that's one of the things that I respect about him so much, that he can play fast break, he can play contained. Allen can't do that.
Remember, he had like a 4-game stretch where he wasn't impatient, and then it was just like Mahomes immediately was like, I got to stop doing this shit. Like,
it was 2021. He was legitimately having serious struggles trying to adjust to that, and then he was just like, okay, I'll settle in.
I just got to stop doing this shit. I just got to stop doing it.
And I think
Allen can't fucking stop. No. He just can't stop.
It's hardwired into Josh Allen. I think it's just hardwired into him.
Yep. He is always going to be. So I actually refer to Josh Allen as the Phil Mickelson of quarterbacks, because Phil on the golf course, he takes chances. Yep. He sometimes takes very ill-advised shots, and sometimes they pay off and they look, oh my God, so pretty, and they're going to be on SportsCenter. And then, like on Monday, the shit just blows up in his face.
More Ricky Fowler to me, but I see where you're going with it.
But yeah, just basically, he's a gambler. He can't change that. That's who he is, and that's who he's probably always going to be. And with Mahomes, I credit Andy Reid a lot on that too, because that's an Andy Reid influence about taking what the defense gives you. He did the same thing with Donovan McNabb, because Donovan McNabb was just like that early in his career, where he had to go downfield, had to get the big play. And as his career progressed, especially that Super Bowl year that they had, or where they went to the Super Bowl, it was okay, the 6-yard gain's available, I'm taking the 6-yard gain. I'm taking the 2-yard out. And
then you just wait for one-on-one with T.O.
All you need is one mistake, and then we go up top. Yep.
Absolutely. And look, that's the advantage of being coming into a situation where a guy has all the talent in the world to succeed, and then you get that West Coast principle, true offensive influence from Andy Reid to try and put him into the structure and allow him to really progress as a quarterback, and it's paid off incredible dividends, to say the least. And look, we see it throughout the games. There will be games in which you just have those 1 or 2 drives where it's like 10 plays, and the defenses just get impatient because defensive coordinators are like, I'm sick and tired of them just rolling down the field on us. And you bring those safeties down, and all of a sudden MVS is going over the top for a long game.
Yep. And that happens, as you take those short or intermediate gains and you just keep eating up clock, because the other thing that the other coordinator is thinking about too is that this is going to gas my defense when they're on the field for 20 to 30, 25 to 30 minutes, just being pummeled, right? That makes a defense exhausted. And so then, to your point, DMAC, then you do start bringing guys up to cheat. And that's when you go play action. And that's when you go over the top. And Mahomes has learned that. And a quarterback like Josh Allen has not.
Yeah, well, some guys can read, some guys can't. But that brings us to the end of our show. It is week 2 in the books. Sunday morning quarterbacks. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Win Today YouTube channel. Sunday Quarterbacks on Twitter, at Sunday Quarterbacks, at DMACWake316 on Twitter, at Spin Doc Sports. As y'all can see, we've made it through our preview for the good games. We done gave you information and analysis and thoughts that's better than any of the bullshit you're going to consume on Twitter today. Any of it. I promise you. Make sure you guys follow Sunday Quarterbacks on all social media platforms. Make sure you guys follow Win the Day VIP. That's me and Spin's VIP for sports betting. Been making people tons of money for the last 2 years. Coming up on a 2-year anniversary of it here. It's going to be fucking splendid here. Spin, DMAC, drop them anything you guys want for as far as, follow the whole 9, and we can get the fuck up out of here. Happy Sunday, my friends.
Yeah, I mean, just at Spin Doc Sports, tweeted it yesterday. Last month, I'm hitting at 70%, 70 in MLB, 70% for K-props. I've already got 5 that I'm looking at today. And so, yeah, we are printing money on K-props. But no, I mean, all the props that I liked, I mentioned before. And I think for, the one general piece of fantasy advice that I would give anybody is that if you drafted a stud, you're still starting your studs in week 2. It's the dumbest thing in the world to go away from them, because then they blow up and then you get frustrated, and then, so on and so forth. I don't usually look to start making huge roster moves or trading until around the week 4 time frame. That's usually when you can tell how your season's going to go. So if you drafted a guy to use him, like a Joe Mixon, and you drafted him to be your running back 1 or running back 2, he's going to be your running back 1 or running back 2 this week. Don't get cute. Start your guys.
Absolutely. Do not, under any circumstances, sit Saquon Barkley against the Cardinals. Don't sit Jess Jacobs against the Bills. They will have good games. I promise you. Relax. Take a deep breath. Like you said, start your studs. DMAC Wake 316 on Twitter. Again, every single Red Friday. If you're a Chiefs fan, we have our Chiefs spaces. We're also doing pregame, postgame, halftime spaces as well. And look, WNBA playoffs are here. Liberty had a nice win last night. You know that I'm always tapped in as far as WNBA is concerned. Having a great time.
You would bring them up.
Hey,
listen, we're going to be at a final. Listen, here's the rule. Me and DMAC are going to meet up in the WNBA finals at Barclays, and that's the plan here. As you know, I'm an Aces fan. I became an Aces fan last year. Yes, I did jump on the bandwagon. Yes, they were really good. Yes, I think they need Candace Parker to beat the Liberty, but that's a different story for a different day. Appreciate you guys taking your time out. Obviously, long episode. This is what it's going to be all season. We're here to bring people the best content, and we're going to make you a shit ton of money. So again, appreciate you, Spin. Appreciate you, DMAC. Let's get the fuck up out of here and make some money. Best of luck to your teams. If you're betting on anyone, we hope you win money. If you're playing fantasy football, we hope you win. Unless you're playing us, we hope you fucking lose by 100.
I'm not in a league with any of y'all, so I hope y'all win.
Peace out.